Good afternoon, little Mead. Story time. Blob by David Walliams. We've read the first few chapters and we're starting chapter 7 today. We have met Bob, the main character. Here he is. Bob has a bit of a funny face and a lot of people are cruel about how he looks. There's his grandpa, who he lives with. And when we left Bob, he's at the zoo. And this chap here, Winston, lets him in for free. Okay, this chapter's called Honking Hooter. Hooter is another word for a nose. Bob's first stop was the proboscis monkey. He was sitting alone on a branch at the back of his cage, ignoring the world. "Hello," called Bob. The monkey didn't turn round. "Hello," Bob called, louder this time. The animal hunched his back. "Hello," Bob sighed. Then he had an idea. The boy had a big nose. Not as big as a proboscis monkey's. No one's nose was as big as that, but Bob's nose was still big. So Bob started honking his hooter. He pressed his nose with his finger and made a loud hooting noise. Honk. The boy could see the monkey beginning to stir. Honk. Bob did it again. The monkey looked quickly over his shoulder. Honk. The animal's eyes shone. Slowly, he lifted his head. The monkey's outrageous nose dangled free for all to see. The monkey pressed his own hooter. Honk, went Bob. So here's a picture of Bob, the main character, and the monkey. So Bob, if you don't know the beginning of the story, is visiting all the unpopular animals in the zoo, all the ones that usually people just walk straight past and think of as ugly. But Bob, being a very kind-hearted boy, wants to visit them instead. The animal looked confused for a moment. Then he pressed his nose again. Honk, the boy provided the sound effect. The third time the proboscis monkey pushed down on his hooter, he made the honking noise himself. Honk. Then the most magical thing happened. The monkey actually laughed to himself. He pressed his nose again, honk, and again, honk. Now the monkey didn't seem shy about having a big nose. He was delighting in it. Instead of hiding it away, he was showing it off for the world to see. Finally, the proboscis monkey looked proud to have the dangliest, dongliest nose in the whole of the zoo. Though there was quite some competition from the aardvark, the toucan and the anteater, because they've all got very long noses too. A crowd of visitors had previously been gathered around the cute chimpanzees, but now everyone was far more excited to see this funny little monkey with a honking hooter. As the people were being wowed by this unexpected show, Winston huffed and puffed his way over. But before he had even arrived at the monkey's cage, Bob had run off to find the next animal. "Wait for me!" cried the old zookeeper, hurrying after the boy. He's on a mission, Bob, to go and see all the ugly animals and cheer them up. The dugong was floating in her tank, grazing on some seagrass. On the other side of the glass was a group of schoolgirls laughing at the poor creature. "She looks like a cow," said one. "A fat cow," said another. "An enormously fat cow," added a third. The girls all laughed. How hilarious they thought they were. The dugong lived down under the water to blot out the sound. The dugong dived down under the water to blot out the sound of the girl's mean mockery. Bob had an idea. Why not beat the girls at their own game? If they thought this animal looked like a cow, then why shouldn't she act like a cow? He pushed past the girls. "Do you mind a little squirt?" shouted one. The boy ignored her and tapped on the glass to get the dugong's attention. The animal looked the funny-faced boy straight in the eye. But when Bob pointed upwards, gesturing for the dugong to surface, she shook her head. Bob wouldn't give up, though. He smiled at her and put his hands together to plead. Finally, the dugong breathed out through her snout as if she was sighing and came to the surface. Bob climbed up onto a bench so he could look over the tank. The schoolgirls stared at this funny-faced little boy. "What on earth is that revolting child doing now?" asked one. "Moo," mooed the boy. The animal regarded the boy with a look of puzzlement on her blubbery face. "Moo," mooed Bob again. The boy then nodded to the dugong that it was her turn, but she remained silent. "Moo," said Bob, louder this time. Eventually, the dugong mooed back. "Moo." It was a muffled, watery moo, but it was a moo nonetheless. "Moo," Bob mooed back, as loud as he could. "Moo," mooed the dugong. Now she was playing up to her sea cow nickname. The schoolgirls, who had been cruelly laughing before, were now cheering with delight. "Oh, this is so jokes," remarked one. Amazingly, the animal seemed to smile and mooed again. "Ooh." The sound was so loud it echoed all over the zoo, and the penguins next door covered their ears with their little wings. There's a picture now. So that's the creature who the girls were teasing, and Bob has taught the creature to moo. Now the schoolgirls were applauding. "Oh, bravo," they shouted. Just then, Winston caught up at last, chuckling with delight at the mooing sea cow. "Well done, boy," he said, looking around for Bob. But Bob had already dashed off. "Wait for me," called out the zookeeper. Chapter 8. Slap Bang. Here's a preview of the picture. You see? Oh, there's Bob again. This time, doing something with an umbrella in the rain. What is he up to? Find out. In no time, Bob had all the funniest looking animals in the zoo putting on shows for the crowds. The boy grabbed an umbrella from a grown-up. He twirled it around, teaching the umbrella bird an old-fashioned dance routine. Oh, that's what he's doing, teaching the bird to dance. Next, the boy pushed his chin down to his chest so his neck bulged out. The marabou stork copied and began proudly showing off his dingly-dangly neck. Then he had the elephant seal make a trumpeting sound from his stumpy trunk. Burp, burp. The real elephant next door looked most displeased to be beaten at her own game and went into a giant sulk. Then Bob put his face up to the Aye-Aye's cage and made his eyes go wide as he could. The little lemur copied him, and in no time at all had the zoo visitors jostling for a look. Following that, Bob pinched his nose and blew into it, making it as big as he could. After a few tries, the hooded seal did the same, to the delight of the crowd. Now the sloth, famous for being the slowest animal on earth, well, the boy taught her to move even slower. The children began playing a game of Grandma's footsteps with the sloth, turning around to see if it had moved. She hadn't. Then Bob lifted his nose, and marched up and down outside the tapir's enclosure. The animal followed the boy, pushing her huge cone-shaped nose proudly into the air for all to see. And next the boy showed the warthog how to preen herself as if she was the most beautiful creature on earth. Soon she was posing for the cameras like a supermodel. Here's the warthog. Instead of shying away, if nobody's visiting, is showing off. And the visitors are loving it. He taught the snapping turtle to open her mouth wide and then snap it as fast as she could. Snap, snap. The zoo visitors were mightily impressed by this strange-looking creature's skill. After that, Bob grabbed a handful of straws from the zoo cafe and stuck them to the back of his school blazer with chewy sweets. The boy raced over to the echinida's enclosure and jumped down onto all fours. The animal looked on curiously, and Bob began arching his back. The animal did the same, proudly showing off his marvellous long white spikes. Racing off to the next cage, Bob put his hand over his nose and flicked his fingers in and out. This encouraged the star-nosed mole to show off his most unusual hooter. Now, we had a picture of the star-nosed mole at the beginning. Where was it? At the beginning, there was all the creatures that don't usually get loved at the zoo. Oh, I can't find them. Let me keep looking. There we go. Where's the mole? Oh, it's a tiny picture. This is mole with his very funny nose with points of skin just flapping down. So he'd encouraged the star-nosed mole to show off its nose rather than being shy of it. Next, Bob coaxed the spotted handfish out from behind a rock by gliding his hand across the glass. In no time, it was as if the boy's hand and the fish were swimming together, and the crowd was marvelling at this marvellous creature. Soon after, the boy found the pangolin. Bob rolled himself up into a ball, and the animal copied him, creating the biggest pine cone the world had ever seen. Now, a bottom as bright as a red tomato is nothing to be ashamed of. In fact, it should be celebrated. Bob wiggled his bottom in front of the Hamadryas baboon cage. The monkey needed little encouragement and soon was putting on the best bottom wiggling show ever seen. The Komodo dragon looked like a dinosaur. Children love dinosaurs, thought Bob. All he had to do was make the lizard act like a dinosaur. So he taught it to roar like one. Roar! Soon the dragon's roar was so loud it could be heard all over the zoo. This was much to the annoyance of the tiger, who had always thought of herself as the best at roaring. There was just one more animal, thought Bob. Flushed with the thrill of it all, Bob raced off to find him. But, not looking where he was going, the boy ran slap bang into a grown-up. Oof! His funny face bounced off the man's fat tummy. "Where do you think you're going, boy?" came an angry voice. The boy looked up. It was the zoo owner, Sir Basil Basildon. Now remember, Bob hasn't paid to get in. He's been sneaking into the zoo with the zookeeper, Winston. So he might be in a bit of trouble now. I'm going to leave it there. Next chapter will be chapter 9 tomorrow. Thanks for tuning in. Bye.